If you've already put a few hours into Outbound, you know this game goes far beyond just driving your van and setting up camp. There is a lot happening under the hood. Resource management, construction, exploration, and the game rarely stops to explain it all in detail. I learned most of this the hard way, so I've taken everything that worked for me and turned it into 10 advanced tips that will change how you play. No filler, let's get straight to the point. I'm Mary, and the video starts now. You know that dog that stays by your side from the start of the game? Many people look at him and think he's just a cute detail to make the van cozier. But no, he's a true exploration partner. And if you're not using him correctly, you're literally throwing away free inventory capacity. The dog has a functional backpack, and you can use it to store heavy resources collected during long expeditions. Think of a classic situation. You've arrived in a new biome, started collecting metal, ore, and components, and your inventory is full halfway back to the van. Without him equipped to carry loads, you have to choose which resources to leave behind. With him, you practically double your collection capacity in a single outing. This makes a huge difference during distant explorations, when the van is parked far away and the path bag is long and filled with irregular terrain. Every round trip you save is time you can use to advance further on the map, discover more points of interest, and collect more without breaking your flow. In Outbound, where time and resource management are constant, this is no small feat. So, before heading out on a major exploration, always equip the dog's backpack and fill it with the heaviest items you know you'll need to carry back. Don't leave him empty just for company. He wants to work, and your van will thank you. You know that feeling of being stuck in the middle of nowhere and realizing your van is running out of power? In the early stages of Outbound, this happens more often than you'd expect. The bioburner is your first energy ally, but it comes at a cost. Wood and fiber disappear quickly from your inventory. You start out excited, collecting resources, and suddenly half of what you stored is gone just to keep the van running. It's frustrating, and that's exactly why this tip exists. The solution? Passive energy. As soon as possible, prioritize researching solar panels and wind turbines to install on the van's roof. These two pieces of equipment completely change the game's dynamic, because once installed, they work for you while you do anything else. You can stop to explore a new biome, collect resources, or rest, and the van charges in the background without you spending a single stick. The combination of solar panels and wind turbines is what makes the setup so solid. The sun goes down at night, but the wind doesn't stop. This means you cover both periods of the day with different sources, resulting in a nearly constant charge. No more being stuck in one place because you couldn't find enough wood or forgot to refill the bioburner before venturing into a remote area. When you finally make this transition, the game literally opens up. You stop thinking about energy as a problem and start viewing it as a tool. Want to explore a distant biome, spend the night on a mountaintop, or just spend hours building? With guaranteed passive energy, none of that is a risk. This is the state Outbound was meant to be played in. Free, off-grid, and without worrying about the next piece of firewood. One of the first things everyone notices is how quickly the van's internal space disappears. You want to place a machine here, a planting area there, a storage system on the other side, and suddenly you're trying to fit 10 things into a space meant for 5. If you're playing like this, stuck on the idea that the van interior is the limit of what you can build, you're leaving half the game on the table. Outbound's modular construction system allows you to expand upward and outward. Second floors, external platforms on the sides, roof extensions. All of this is possible and completely changes how you organize your mobile base. Instead of compressing everything inside, you start thinking vertically. Heavy machines and high-use stations stay at the bottom, while storage and crops move to external platforms, and the roof becomes a truly functional area rather than just a place for solar panels. What makes this strategy so powerful is its relationship with weight. Expanding with external modular platforms distributes weight much more efficiently than simply piling everything inside the van. Advanced players realize this early and use this technique to double their usable area without suffering excessive movement penalties. In other words, you gain space without sacrificing mobility, which is the heart of the game. When you internalize this logic, the van stops being a vehicle with a tiny base attached and becomes a structure you actually designed. Every trip starts to feel more personal. There is something very satisfying about arriving in a new biome with a build you assembled piece by piece, knowing every inch was a conscious choice. If you're still ignoring engine and suspension upgrades, it's gonna hurt you sooner than you think. At first, the van seems fine, but as soon as you start stacking heavy machinery and metal structures, it starts responding differently, slower and more drunk around corners. You'll feel this on rough terrain at the worst possible time. Here's the deal. The engine upgrade isn't just about going faster. It exists primarily so the van can carry real weight without losing vehicle control. When you start adding machines and metal structures to your build, the van's weight increases significantly, and a weak engine simply cannot maintain drivability on steep climbs and varied terrain. It's like putting a small engine in a truck full of cement. The math doesn't add up. This is exactly where the suspension comes in. It's what keeps the van planted on the ground while you navigate more demanding biomes. With weak suspension and a heavy van, the steering becomes imprecise, and the van will tend to sway or fail to respond as it should on descents and turns. It's not just about comfort, it's about the survival of the journey. So, upgrade both the engine and suspension together as soon as you have the resources. Don't wait for one of them to break before taking action. There's one more thing many people forget. Weight also affects energy consumption. The van in Outbound is electric, and a heavier van drains the battery faster, especially on inclines. This combination of a strong engine and good suspension isn't a luxury, it's real journey efficiency. You'll explore further, use less energy, and reach the most distant points of the map without getting stuck waiting for a recharge. Scrap metal is one of those resources you underestimate at the start and panic over when you realize how much you need for the mid and late game. It doesn't appear everywhere, you can't farm it in just any biome, and by the time you understand how essential it is for progression, your stock is already empty. If you're spending time searching the map randomly for scrap, there's a much smarter way to do it. The signal towers, those signaling towers you use to unlock blueprints, have a detail few notice in the first few hours. The metal scattered around them respawns. Every 1 or 2 in-game days, after sleeping, the resources return within that radius near the tower. This turns every signal tower you've discovered into a fixed, predictable, and reliable collection point, rather than a place you visit once and abandon. Based on this, the logic is simple. Set up a route. Identify the towers you've discovered, mark them on the map, and create a circuit of stops. You travel from tower to tower, collecting what has respawned, sleep, and in the next cycle, the points are replenished and waiting for you. It's a farming strategy with its own rhythm that fits perfectly with Outbound's playstyle because you keep exploring while collecting without standing still. What makes this an advanced tip is the mindset behind it. You stop reacting to the map and start planning around it. Players who reach the late game without a scrap metal stockpile get stuck on important progressions at the most unexpected times. Those who set up routes early arrive at this stage with surplus material, more options, and, most importantly, without that annoying feeling of having to backtrack to farm what they should have saved earlier. Think with me. You've spent hours unlocking new parts, collecting resources, and evolving the van. And then you hit steep terrain and realize everything inside is a mess. Heavy items at the top, inaccessible workstations, and the drivability has gone out the window. This happens when you build without a plan. And in Outbound, the van is your home, your lab, and your vehicle all at once. It needs to function as all three together. The golden rule of modular construction is simple. Heavy items stay at the bottom, Always. Machines, metal structures, or anything dense goes at the base of the van. This isn't a matter of personal organization, it's physics. A low center of gravity means a more stable van, better handling, and less trouble on the rough terrain the game loves to throw at you. The roof, on the other hand, is the perfect place for solar panels, farm plants, and decorations, things you don't access all the time but need to have. The sides and the internal space is where the layout's intelligence lives. Expand to the sides when you need more area, but always keep the most important workstations in positions you can reach without acrobatics. This matters a lot when you need to craft something on the move without stopping the van mid-exploration. A poorly thought-out design here will cost you time in the worst way possible, exactly when you least want to stop. If you play in co-op, a well-planned van completely transforms the game's dynamic. One player drives and navigates, while the other stays inside, managing inventory, building, and crafting resources in real time. This division of tasks is where Outbound really shows what it's capable of as a duo. But this only works if the internal space was designed for two, with a clear flow, easy access, and no clogs from poorly positioned pieces in the way. If you're arriving in new regions and heading straight for resource gathering without paying attention to the structures around you, you're skipping exactly what will make you progress faster. Landmarks in Outbound aren't just pretty spots on the map. Lighthouses, windmills, fire lookouts, each of these structures hides something that will change what you can build and how you explore from that point forward. The first thing these activations release are blueprints and tech upgrades that you simply cannot access any other way. These aren't resources you find on the ground or crafts you unlock by evolving the van. It's content locked behind these specific structures, and ignoring a signal tower in a new region is literally leaving part of the game closed while you try to advance with what you already have. Activate first. Explore later. Always. The large windmill is a perfect example of why it's worth the effort. It requires scrap metal and involves a lever system that isn't immediately obvious. You need to stop, observe, and solve it. But the energy boost it delivers afterward is substantial, especially if you already have a heavy van full of machines draining the battery constantly. It's a time investment that pays off in just a few play sessions. There's another overlooked benefit. These structures function as actual landmarks on the map. After activating a lighthouse or a fire lookout, you have a visual and cartographic anchor in that region. This makes planning exploration routes much easier and helps you avoid getting lost when the biome starts looking the same. Explore landmarks first. Not because the game tells you to, but because it's the smartest decision you can make when entering new territory. There comes a moment in the game when you realize that depending on manual collection to sustain yourself no longer scales. You're exploring larger regions, the van is heavier, outings are longer, and stopping to pick food off the ground all the time starts to break your rhythm. This is exactly where the farming system stops being optional and becomes a central part of your survival strategy. The first step is to stop treating the garden as a decoration and start thinking of it as infrastructure. Each biome has its most efficient crops. Mushrooms yield much better in damp forests. Coastal fruits produce more near the shore. And respecting this soil by biome logic makes a real difference in production volume and speed. Putting the wrong crop in the wrong place wastes space you don't have to spare in the van. Automation comes in to solve the next bottleneck. When you connect advanced stations in a chain, with one processing what the other produced, you stop spending time on repetitive steps and start spending it on what matters: exploration and expansion. Cooking complex meals within this chain is where the stamina and energy buffs really shine. Eating raw food works in an emergency, but constantly relying on it means playing without part of your potential active. The most important rule of this entire structure is diversification. Depending on a single resource, whether for food or production, creates a single point of failure for your entire system. If that crop doesn't yield in one session or you need to change biomes, everything stalls. With a variety of sources and an automated chain running in parallel, the van becomes a truly self-sufficient base, and you explore with a completely different level of security.
I should find something to eat.
Outbound is not a game that lets you use the same strategy forever. Every biome you enter has its own logic, climate, resources, and its own ways of giving you trouble. A van that worked perfectly in the forest can become a problem on the coast if you don't stop to think about what needs adjusting before moving camp. Adaptation starts before you leave. Use the right tires for the terrain type, an energy system sized for that biome's consumption, and swap crops based on the available soil. This isn't unnecessary micromanagement. It's the game telling you that every region has a different operating cost. Anyone arriving in a new biome with a van configured for the previous one will feel it in the handling, battery, and resource production long before they realize what's wrong. Nighttime deserves special attention here. Visibility drops and energy consumption can increase depending on the systems you have active. Exploring in the dark without the right lighting upgrades is asking to get lost or make a bad route decision. High beams and van lighting upgrades stop being luxuries and become real necessities when you want to take advantage of the map outside of daylight hours. What separates an adaptable player from one who gets stuck is exactly this environmental reading. Don't enter a new biome on autopilot. Stop, observe what the terrain is asking for, adjust what needs adjusting, and only then move forward. Outbound rewards those who think before acting, and every biome is essentially a new test of that. A single chest for everything is the quietest mistake you can make in van organization. At first, it seems to work, but when your inventory truly starts to grow with resources from different biomes, machine components, farm items, and accumulated junk, you waste time looking for what you need every single time. Separating chests by category isn't perfectionism, it's efficiency you'll feel in every session. The recycler comes in specifically to solve the problem of accumulated trash that will inevitably appear. Instead of storing useless items that take up space or simply discarding everything, you put them in the recycler and turn them into vouchers and tickets that unlock blueprints or become useful resources. This is a system that closes the van's production cycle in a very clever way, and ignoring it is letting real value slip away through neglect. The combination of the two, separate chests and a working recycler, creates an organizational flow that practically maintains itself. You return from an exploration, distribute items into the right chests, send the trash to the recycler, and in a few minutes, the van is ready for the next outing. Without this system, you spend more time reorganizing inventory than actually playing. Define your chest categories early, before you think you need them. Raw resources in one place, processed components in another, consumables separate, and a specific chest for items headed to the recycler. When this structure is set up before the van gets full, you'll never have to stop an exploration because you don't know where to put what you just collected.